Hello and welcome to the last lap guide for the Radical Academy Esports League. This week we are heading to most of our home track on iRacing, Mosport. This is a very fast track, especially in this car. A lot of downforce, but also, as you've been finding out, a lot of understeer. So it makes for a pretty good combination here for the finale of the league. And again, like usual, I'm using the exact same conditions you will be using in the race. I'm going to jump right into the hot lap and then go through corner by corner, breaking down everything that I did. So yeah, let's jump right into the hot lap. Alright, so heading into turn 1 here, extremely fast right-hander. It's not until you actually go to this track where you realize how fast this corner is. I was able to watch the IMSA race here last year with Daniel Blanco, and we saw the LMP2 cars fly around this corner, so extremely quick. This car, similar to an LMP2 in terms of downforce, but has a lot more understeer as well. I'm using this tree on the left-hand side of my screen here as my turn-in reference point. As soon as I get to around where I am right now, that is when I start turning in, making sure I'm as far over to the left as possible before turning in. Then I turn in and make sure I'm lifting after I turn the wheel. And then I'm kind of mid-track on entry and then just trying to get as close to this red and white curb at apex here, and just about clipping it as I get further into the corner, back to 100% throttle, keeping it in 5th gear here. One thing I did find tricky with this corner is if you are a bit wider, you will have to slow down quite a bit more than if you were to take the normal line through here. So just keeping that in mind, that the outside line you do have to slow down quite a bit more, maybe even use some brakes or downshift. You do also get quite a bit of understeer on exit here. So if I just keep it going here, you want to make sure your left-hand tires don't go all the way over into the grass. Otherwise, you will get some oversteer and maybe even spin. I got some just like minimal oversteer, just mounted up the curb and then kind of bottomed out. Didn't really scrape the floor of the car, but just messed with the balance of the car. Didn't lose any time. It's just on the absolute limit of that exit there. Bringing the car over to the right-hand side as fast as possible as you want to prep for the next left-hander. Making sure your car is all the way to the right here. My tire is over into the grass. I didn't touch the grass though. I was just making sure I was at the very edge using all the track available to me. This corner is pretty tricky. There is a massive crest. As you can see, the track drops down. That means there will be a loss of grip. So you want to be able to open the track up as much as possible, allowing yourself to carry as much speed through the corner. Dropping the throttle and up to around 15% brakes, and turning in fairly early, trying to aim for this little cutout in the grass here. Trying to aim for that, get your front wheels into there just a little, and then as you get there, you want to get back on throttle, keeping the car fairly close to this white line here. Using this dark patch of track just kind of as a guide. That is the racing line, so yeah, just following that kind of, and then cutting back over this white line, getting as close as possible to this grass here on the left, keeping it in 5th through there as well. And then just like in between turn 1 and turn 2, you want to bring the car over to the left as fast as possible. I'm using this board on the left as my braking marker. making sure I'm all the way over to the left before I start applying the brakes. As I kind of pass the board here on the right, that is when I start braking up to 50%, and then making sure I hold that all the way up until I start turning in. Turning in just before I reach this dark patch of track here, kind of a little ways before that, but right as it passes my little super small windshield there. This corner is a bit deceiving as well. You can see here that it does open up on exit like an opening spiral, so you can afford to turn in a bit earlier than you may think before this dark line here. I kind of cut the beginning part here and then try and just get as close as possible to the curbing here. That is when I'm as close to the dark patch of track there, and then just making sure I run all the way out wide on exit. So braking and then apexing there, and then just making sure I'm tracking out wide. And because the track also opens up on exit, that means you can also open the steering wheel up as well, allowing yourself to carry more speed and get back to power a lot sooner. Editor George here. One thing I did forget to mention was the initial lead up to Moss. It is very important that you do stay all the way to the right hand side of the track, heading up to the yellow bridge, getting all the way over to the grass, opening up that initial first little kink to the left as much as possible. This car, as much downforce as there is, again, there is also a ton of understeer at high speeds if you don't take a corner correctly. So yeah, just making sure you are all the way over to the right as you start turning in, and then yeah, following the line that I will show you in a second. Heading into turn 5, Moss Corner. This is probably where you're losing the most amount of time throughout the course of the entire lap. Trying to stay as close to this white line on the left as possible on entry. I'm using the first left board on the left as my braking marker. Right as I'm about to pass it, when I'm in cockpit view, is when I start braking, and I'm up to around 95% brakes, and making sure I hold that for as long as I can before I start turning in, and then yeah, just trying to get as far over to the left as possible before turning in. And then I am kind of aiming to just clip this apex here on the right, getting as close as possible to the white line there. And then you can see that I do delay my last downshift down to second up until about this point, mid-corner, and that is to kind of counteract the oversteer that you get from downshifting. If you downshift down to second before then, you may find that you will get a spike in the revs and a lot of oversteer. So I found delaying my downshift down to second up until mid-corner was helping a lot with the oversteer you get. And then trying to run as wide as possible there. This corner is a bit sketchy because you are coming in pretty hot, and then it's uphill. And then as we go a bit further into the corner, you can see I'm just trailing between like 6 to 9% brakes just to keep some weight on the front tires. And then right as I get close to this curb on the left, that is when I turn the wheel to its maximum, and then getting back on power. Just being careful on exit, as it is fairly easy to lose the rear, especially if you run all the way out wide. That curb is raised, so you can get the rear end a bit loose. Watching out for this apex here as well. The curb is pretty big, so if you hit that in this car, you will probably spin. So you want to try and aim to get as close as possible to this white line here, and then just trying to open up your steering wheel as much as possible and get to 100% throttle as fast as possible. That way you get a super good exit onto the long straight over here, and that is also where you might be losing a lot of time. If your exit is compromised throughout Moss Corner, your whole run down the back straight will be slower than someone who got a super good exit. So just making sure you don't get a ton of oversteer on exit, and yeah, just look to get back to 100% as fast as possible safely. So unlike me getting a bit of oversteer, didn't lose too much time through there, but just try and be super patient on throttle there. and yeah, try to minimize the oversteer, but getting back to 100% throttle as quick as you can. Flat out, obviously, down the entire straight, and then I did wait to shift up to 6 until I got up over this hill here. I found a few thousandths, hundredths of a second by doing that. So if you can gain time through upshifts, why not take that extra couple hundredths of a second? But yeah, anyways, heading into the final sector of the track, pretty tricky combo actually, because if you mess up this first corner, the next two are also going to be compromised. If you mess up the middle one, the next one's going to be compromised. So this sector really needs to be hooked up for it to be good. Making sure you're all the way over to the left-hand side, turning in just before the fences on the left there, aiming towards this first bit of curb here, just staying a bit wide, trailing 10 to 15% brakes, down 2 gears here, and then trying to get as close as possible to this white line here for the second bit of curb, and then trying to bring your car over as much to the right as you can to set up the next left-hander as best as possible. Staying in fourth through here, trailing the brakes to the apex here, just getting on that curb there, and then getting back to throttle as quick as you can. And then once again, bring your car over to the opposite side there, the left-hand side, and then I am braking just as the signs, the Audi signs on the left here start. Turning in just by this weird little patch of track there, and then just light brakes, trying to carry as much speed as possible through this corner. And then I did also find it fairly easy to lose the rear on this corner, so once again, just being patient as you get back to 100% throttle, and then all the way to the line, and that should get you a 1 minute 12.325. Fast track, fast time, going to be super tight racing on Tuesday, so good luck in the race.